Welcome back to Knowledge. We are heading into round 2 of the playoffs, where hopefully we get some actually entertaining games this time. We got some great matches ahead. We're going to go through our picks, our takes on kind of situation, and who's going to come out on top in advance. So first, on December 31st, we've got the Fiesta Bowl, number 4 Penn State versus number 9 Boise State in rankings. Down in Arizona, Penn State favored by 10.5, excuse me, here. Now, Boise State has really had a magical season here, and unfortunately my take on this game is that it comes to a screeching halt against Penn State. Everyone is really upset about that first round of blowouts we got in the playoffs. Unfortunately, I think that continues here. I don't think this game will be remotely close, to be honest. I think Penn State's defense is too good, even with Genty. I think he'll get this will be the game where he gets stopped, and I think Boise State won't do enough on defense to limit Penn State. Penn State will do enough to take over, and while it won't be absolute blowout, the game will never be particularly close. Now, what's your take on this?
Yeah, it's pretty plain pick too. But so Penn State is favored by 10.5. I'm laying the points. I think probably 41-24. I mean, obviously, Genty is still think he'll go for about 100. But so Madsen the QB, I think Penn State's rushed too much. I don't think they get much going. And then Boise State, they haven't really had to come from behind. They've been even the Oregon game they haven't had to play from behind at all this year. So I think once they get down, I think it'll pretty much be over. Then Penn State pulls away late.
Yeah. What do you, Jim?
Man, as much as I really want to pick against Penn State here, I would say I had a similar take to Chuck. I think Jonty, has a similar game to Oregon, but not quite as good. Penn State's definitely going to stifle him a bit. Probably 100, 150 yards, but it's not going to be enough in the end. I mean, I'm not sold on this Penn State team. I think they're frauds in a way, but they basically got this path where they're guaranteed into the semifinals. So it's like, this is the game that they can win, obviously, Boise. So I have to go with them here.
Yeah. Bit of a hot take here, and in hindsight, who knows? Maybe this will backfire horribly on me. But I think after this game, a lot of the Genty Colts, the worshipers, kind of quiet up after this game. To be honest, where everyone loves to talk, but the Oregon game. People forget that Oregon was in a fight for its life against Idaho State just the week before Boise State. This was clearly a little bit of a different Oregon team at the end of the season.
Well, the bigger thing to think about...
Well, people use that for entire justification of why Boise State...
The bigger thing about the Oregon game is that
destroyed.
I don't think Oregon really keyed in on them because they didn't really know he was good yet. But Penn State obviously has got their focus on them.
They didn't know he was good at
That's true.
Penn State's defense, especially rushing defense, is also significantly better than Oregon's, too.
I mean, I still think he'll do all right, but...
I mean, he's going to be all they have going. He's going to be all they have going.
They can't win with just him.
They can't. And if he's stopped early on, then it's going to be a long night for Boise.
I think the only path they get going is so they need to get passing game going too, which will be tough. And then Boise State's D-line, that's the best part of their defense. If their D-line can pressure Aller all day, then maybe Boise State can pull upset.
I think Penn State's defense is just too disciplined, to be honest. But, hey, we'll see. All right, moving on to the true New Year's slate. We've got the Peach Bowl, number 3 Texas versus number 12 Arizona State in Atlanta, Georgia. Of course, Texas favored with the largest spread of these 4 games by 13. Now, as unoriginal as it is, I picked upsets in the last round and got burned for it, so I'm just playing it safe here. Give me Texas to win. To win, but not to cover. I think this will be maybe a little bit of a closer game than people realize, especially at first, but Texas is superior, just talent. And particularly their lines will dominate. What do you think?
Yes, another boring pick. Arizona State just won't score enough. I think maybe they cover, so get within 10. But so they don't have Jordan Tyson, the wide receiver, so they won't be able to pass much. Pretty much their only offense will be Scatterboo, and I think they keep it somewhat close. But I mean, Texas obviously is way too much.
Honestly, I have to go with ASU here. I'm not sold on him. I wouldn't take Illinois, but I want to pick an upset here, and I can totally see Texas going down in this game. I agree with Chuck. Missing their top wide receiver is going to hurt. And Scatterboo obviously is great, but at the end of the day, I feel like everyone kind of just just like hopped on the bandwagon with him. Like no one knew who he was until that Big 12 championship.
No.
Yeah.
So like,
Is he really that insane? Is he really that
He's
insane?
kinda tough.
I think he's good, but he's not some game changer, you know. And without like passing game, they would really struggle. But after seeing Texas's like secondary in that Clemson game, and honestly, just their defense in general, it gives me a little bit more cause to I think Arizona State, if they can get their offense rolling, this game is going to be more about Quinn Ewers. If Quinn Ewers can have a good game, if he has a good game against that defense,
team mistakes can make a difference.
then I think that's what's going to bring him up. Because I honestly see Arizona State possibly having another good game like Clemson had against Texas' defense. So I will take them here. It's it's obviously like I'm not super confident in it, but I want to pick them. I would love to see Texas go down here.
Yeah, I'm still not 100% sold on Texas. Like, I don't care who comes out of the Oregon-Ohio State game. I'm automatically picking them to beat Texas, as I think most people are. But I think they do enough to get by this very favorable draw here. So let's.
Well, I was just gonna say about the Arizona State game.
Well,
So
yeah.
if I had to pick an upset, it'd be that. But so the one path they win, the only way I see it. So Texas 2 losses, they couldn't get the rushing game going. When Texas gets the rushing game going, it's Clemson, it's A&M, even they can't stop them. Arizona State has the number 1 ranked rush defense in the Big 12, so it's decent. It's like 20th. They need to shut down the rushing game. If they do that, then they can win.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, you look at it. They're a one-loss team with their quarterback, right? I mean, one of the games they lost, they didn't have their starting quarterback, and I believe they lost to BYU? No, they beat BYU. Who did they lose to with their Texas Tech? Okay. So I mean, that's not a great loss, but still, when their quarterback plays, they've still looked like a really solid team. This game is just going to determine whether or not it was because they're playing against Big 12 teams or if they're actually.
We'll see who if Texas still owns the Big 12 or not.
I don't know if they ever owned the Big 12.
Well, they did last year.
I mean, they
last
definitely
year,
do
yeah,
last
but
year,
that's
so we'll
like
see if they
historically, I don't know.
continue
about
the ownership. They definitely can make a statement as we still kind of own you guys if they just don't go and dominate the Big 12 champion. Now, we mentioned it. Moving on to the biggest game of the day, the Rose Bowl, the best of all. Number 1 Oregon versus number 8 Ohio State in Pasadena, California. Ohio State, really all momentum I would say is swinging towards them. Favored by 2.5. Really Oregon, despite being undefeated and the number 1 team in the country, no one seems to be picking them. And while that kind of leaves me a little bit uncertain, I made this pick before the playoffs, so I got to stick with it. Give me Ohio State to get their revenge game against Oregon here. I think if they play anywhere, particularly with Will Howard, he's kind of the X factor, obviously. If he plays anywhere near the level he did in that Tennessee game, I think Ohio State will do enough to win. I think it's going to be another close, just absolute classic, and I think we're in for some great football. What do you think, James?
I had the same take. I picked Ohio State before the playoffs started. I personally thought they would win the rematch here. And after seeing them blow up in that Tennessee game, and now that they're favored and everyone's picking them, it gives me the opposite reaction. I want to take Oregon here. I will stick with my pre-playoff pick with Ohio State, but I do think everyone is counting Oregon out way too much here. They're obviously undefeated Big Ten champs. They're a great team, so I don't really see any way that they could, just get completely outmatched here. Like some people seem to be playing it up. So it's gonna be a good game. At the end of the day, obviously their first match went down the wire, and I really think this being at a neutral site over Autzen is basically that difference. Autzen's a loud stadium. Something is like down that last play where like neutral site can definitely swing that. So this is gonna be a great game to watch either way. I could see it go, but I'll take LSU.
Yeah, I mean, clean sweep here is kind of boring. So Ohio State was my preseason title team. Of course, got to stick with them. Even though I think Oregon likes being down, I'm kind of looking more like Oregon, but I don't want to switch my pick. But so the first game, if you watched it, so the reason Ohio State lost, so their 2 corners, Burke and Ignosin, they pretty much got cooked all game. And so after that, they switched their defense up. They're more of a prevent defense. They use their safeties a lot more. Caleb Downs has been a lot more involved. I think that's the difference. They don't let up any big plays. The last game, they let up so many big plays, but I think that's the difference. They limit the big plays, and then their offense is too much.
I think Ohio State has something to prove, really. They looked like it in the Tennessee game. If they get anywhere near that same kind of level of fire and intensity, I think Ohio State is going to come out firing on all cylinders. I think Oregon is going to wake up a little bit slow, and then they'll really settle into an even game. But I say Ohio State jumps up to an early, at least 7-0 lead, I would guess.
Well, very similar to the Georgia game. game 2002. I mean, they came out firing because Ryan Day, he's never won a big game, so he's looking to prove something. But
yeah. All right, and moving on to the final quarterfinal, we've got Notre Dame, Georgia in the Sugar Bowl in New Orleans, Louisiana. Georgia, this says the closest spread, and I would agree with the odds makers. This feels the most like a toss-up to me. Georgia favored by 1.5. And now, since this is such a toss-up game, I'm going to have to go with a team that has been there so many times before, and the coach has been there before. Kirby Smart, I think, gets his team ready, gets it done. He's probably telling them that they think they're going to lose 50-0. They think they thought they were going to go 7-5 this year and whatnot. I don't think he's probably just convinced them all. I think Notre Dame is honestly definitely looked like the better team as a whole this season, but Georgia's just playoff experience and talent is able to just kind of get it done.
yeah, this really is kind of the game I know the least about. So honestly, I don't know what to expect from Georgia. I mean, Stockton, he looked all right in the Texas game, but I don't know what to expect. I mean, Notre Dame, they're also missing a couple of defensive pieces. I still take Georgia just because of coaching. I mean, I know it's a boring pick, but this is the game. I really don't know what to expect from this one.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take Notre Dame here, and I really think they've become a well-rounded team through the end of the year. I feel like they're the only team that, ever since that close Texas A&M game and then the horrible loss to Northern Illinois, they've only gotten better and better. They really got their stuff together after that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're the only team they're blowing out every team they played left and right. Which, sure, maybe they weren't great competition, but I think they've really
More than Georgia was doing against.
I think they really
competition.
found what they're good at here, and now that they have to play a team like Georgia, now they get to test that. And really, I agree with what Chuck said about Stockton, but I really did like what I saw out of him in that Texas game. Beck being out, I think actually makes me want to side with Georgia more. Honestly, with
Can't
Stockton.
get 2 picks or something.
Yeah, I still, because I think,
yeah,
I like just Stockton and Beck. Honestly, he hadn't been playing great in a lot of those games. But either way, it really, I think, comes down to that Notre Dame offense, because obviously the games like Northern Illinois and like Texas A&M, if they can get their offense going, then that won't have to happen, and they can, I think, light it up. But sometimes they just have those bad games where they can't get anything together. And if Georgia shuts them down, then it's definitely going to go their way.
yeah.
But I'll take Notre Dame here, just because they seem to have really gotten better, whereas Georgia has been shaky at the end of the year with games like Georgia Tech and whatnot.
This year's Georgia team is clearly a much different team than the ones the past, I would say, 3 or 4 years. Now the question will be, which Georgia team do we see? Do we see the one that beat Texas twice without that much trouble, or the one that lost to Ole Miss and struggled hard against, Georgia Tech?
I mean, I definitely see this game as the most full score.
Or maybe Texas was never good after all.
We could find out. We could find out.
So Notre Dame, so they need to get the last couple games that we got going is their backs, Love and Price. But I think why I'm taking Georgia. So if they're gonna force Leonard to beat him, I don't think he can, but it's really gonna be low scoring. I think 24 Georgia. But I think as long as Carson Beck, they're not gonna have him passing much. As long as he doesn't turn it over,
Beck
or whatever, you know what I mean, Stockton. As long as he doesn't turn it over much, they'll be fine. But they won't make him pass it much.
I think, while I don't think he's like an elite, amazing talent by hands, I think Riley Leonard is the better quarterback clearly in this game, and I think he does enough to make that difference. Makes a few key plays with his legs, for example.
he will.
That's able to really could get the job done. I could see it, but again, I'm just going with George's experience, and whatnot. Kind of getting honestly probably the most boring outcome continuing.
Notre Dame hasn't won a big game since 1988.
Yeah, we'll see if Michigan kind of broke that streak last year. We'll see if they do it this year.
Yeah.
But all right, that'll do it for this episode of Knowledge, and we will see you back soon with the semifinals.